Hello, this is a video about the vignetting you can get when you use a close-up lens. Got a variety of close-up lenses here. At the back we've got 4 what are sometimes called close-up filters. All these close-up lenses, the power of them is denoted by a number between 1 and 25, 1 being not very powerful and 25 being very powerful. This is a 1, a 2, a 4 and a 10. These are single pieces of glass that don't produce terrific results. In front we've got 5 achromatic close-up lenses. We've got a Canon 500D, which is a +2, a Marumi 200, yes, which is a +5, that's that one, a Raynox 150, which is +4.8, so those two are almost the same power, a Raynox 250, which is +8, and then a Raynox MSN 202, which is +25. As you can see, these differ in the diameter. This is the biggest one, the Canon 500D, and this is the smallest one. The size of the lens isn't directly related to the power, because these two are virtually the same power, but as you can see they've got different diameters. So what's this vignetting business? Here I've got a Panasonic FZ200, and I'm going to put a Raynox 250 on the front of it. Now, if we zoom in, let's get these others out of the way. If we zoom in here on the LCD, you can see that there's great big black lines around the edge of it. If I zoom out, they get smaller and eventually they disappear. So that is vignetting. It's caused by the close-up lens cutting off some of the light around the edges. There we are, come back. How much of this you get depends upon the close-up lens that you're using and the lens of the camera that you're putting it onto. And it also depends upon how you mount the close-up lens onto the camera lens. Let's deal with that first. This is an FZ200, and the vignetting, the maximum vignetting, is it's not quite a full circle, and it disappears by the time I zoom out to about 3 times. I'm now going to take it off of that camera and put it onto another FZ200. This one has an adapter tube on it. So the lens moves back, the camera lens moves backwards and forwards in there, and the close-up lens stays where it is, there. And I've explained in another video why I might want to do that. In fact, I prefer using it that way. If we zoom in here, you can see there's actually more vignetting. It's not just a full circle, it's deep inside the rectangular shape of the LCD. And I have to zoom out a long way. I'm now at 6 or 7 times zoom, and that vignetting has disappeared. So I get much more serious vignetting with the when I'm using the close-up lens on that adapter tube, rather than putting the close-up lens directly onto the lens of the camera. The implication of this is that with it on the camera, I can use, if we look at it here, I can, of course I haven't got the achromat on it, I can use zoom and magnifications all the way from 3 to 24 times. So that's in terms of the amount of zoom that I'm using for the camera. So that's at 1 time zoom. I go out to 3, and I can now use everything all the way out to, of course it's not focusing on anything at the moment, but I've got a good range from 3 to 24. When it's on the tube, I can only go from 7 to 24, so I'm a bit more restricted in the range of magnifications that I can use. I'll mount the rest of the close-up lenses on the one with the tube, I think, because that will show it off worst. So that was with a Raynox 250. That's that one. The Raynox 150 is, although it's a different power from the 250, it's exactly the same size, and it vignettes exactly the same amount, so that I have to get to 6 or 7 times zoom on the FZ200 with the adapter tube before the vignetting disappears. The FZ150 here is almost exactly the same power as this Marumi 200. Okay, but they've got different diameters. And the implication of that is that if I put the Marumi onto the FZ200, and we have a look here, let's zoom in on the LCD, then there's actually less vignetting. There's still a lot, but by the time I've got to 4 times rather than 7 times, the vignetting's gone. So because the Marumi has a bigger diameter, I can use a greater amount of, greater range of magnifications. It has the same maximum magnification, but I can use lesser magnifications than I can with the 150 mounted on the same camera. The biggest of these lenses, in terms of its diameter, the weakest in terms of its power, is the Canon 500D, and with that one I need to get to, well, I need to get to 3 with that one as well. It's a very similar size to the Marumi. It's actually a 58mm lens, but the tube itself that it's mounted on is probably the limiting factor here. And the close-up lenses are all 52mm diameter, so they produce the same amount of vignetting as the Marumi 200, which is a 52mm diameter. The one that causes the most astounding amount of vignetting is the most powerful one, the MSN 202, which I have to get to, let me just zoom out a minute, I have to get to about, it's not gone yet, you probably may not be able to see it, but there is in fact still vignetting at the edge. I'm 10 times out. You have to go a long way. It has, if I go right back to full wide angle, it has a great deal of vignetting when you're only on 1 times zoom. So that's how it looks with this bridge camera, the FZ200, which has a very wide range of focal lengths on it. Not quite as bad as we've been looking at if you don't use the adapter tube, if you put these acromats directly onto the end of the lens. Now, going to put these lenses onto a different sort of a camera. Here we've got a Panasonic G5, and it's already got one on it, which I'll take off. So here, this has a lens which goes from 45 to 175mm, which is the equivalent in 35mm terms to 90 to 350. So it's a telephoto zoom. It simply doesn't have the wide angle. This is with these interchangeable lens cameras. You have typically one zoom lens for wide to middling angles, and then another one to go from the middling angles out to telephoto. This is the telephoto one. The result of that is that it vignettes considerably less than the FZ200 does. So for example, if I put the worst of these on, which is the MSN 202, then if I zoom in on this, we can see, in fact, where are we? I'm now at full wide angle, and it's not vignetting. And I zoom out. There isn't any vignetting there, and there aren't with any of the others either, because the MSN 202 is the worst case, and it's similar. And I actually do use the MSN 202 on the G5 because it works quite well. Here is a Canon 70D. Now here I've got a 55 to 250, so this is a similar sort of lens to the 45 to 175. This one's equivalent to 80 something to 400, I think. So I've again put the worst of these close-up lenses onto it, and there we go. We can see, if I zoom in, don't know if you can see that. Yes, it's got some vignetting there. So if I zoom out, oh, what's going on there? Well, it doesn't like it at all. I think I've got reflections on the inside. I've actually never used this on this MSN 202 on this camera. There's certainly something it doesn't like about it. If we try it with something a bit less extreme, I'll put the Raynox 250 on it. And here, I think what we'll find, yes, that's full wide angle. And again, it's like on the Panasonic G5 with the telephoto zoom, you don't get vignetting. The only problem is, as we saw with the MSN 202, all the others work okay. And that's the deal with vignetting. You can also use these close-up lenses on prime lenses to give a bit of extra magnification. For example, people put them on top of a macro lens or on the end of a macro lens, and I'm not sure what the situation is there because I don't do that. I'd need to have a look, but you just need to be aware that if you're using close-up lenses, they do work well on zoom lenses, but depending on what lens you put them on, you may get more or less vignetting, again depending on the diameter of the close-up lens that you're using. So there we are. That's it. That's all for now.